Hi there, welcome to this special conversation. Great pleasure for us to have my dear friend and colleague, Gaurav Choudhury, looking at the biggest story. What a story, Gaurav.
Yes, absolutely.
Turned out to be a whimper. I mean, look at the headline, which our producers had created. And Supreme Faisla, Gautam Adani pe Supreme Faisla. Firstly, tell me, what do you make out of the bullet points of the Supreme Court verdict, effectively giving, as Gautam Adani himself says, a clean chit against the Hindenburg allegations?
So, well, you have to cut back exactly a year ago. It all started on January 24, 2023, and it was 1 week before the union budget and exactly 7 days before the Adani enterprises, the Adani Group, was supposed to come out with a 20,000 crore follow-on public offer. 24th of January, Hindenburg came out with a report. The stock prices went on a free fall. It hit its nadir on the day of the union budget, as the budget was being presented. Right after the budget was presented, panic set in, not because of what the measures were announced in the budget, but because of the Hindenburg report, and we saw how markets actually yo-yoed during the course of the speech. The markets were up and then suddenly started a free fall. And on February 2nd, the day after that, the Adani Group called off the follow-on public offer, citing volatility in the market. Mr. Adani, Gautam Adani, his rank as in the pantheon of world billionaires fell to 27th when he was 4th or 5th at that point in time in early last year. And cut back to, and then it went to Supreme Court. There were petitioners. Supreme Court formed a committee. There were allegations of conflict of interest among panel members.
And everything rejected today by the Supreme Court.
And everything was rejected by the Supreme Court today. In fact, there have been some very important observations by the Supreme Court in the ruling. For instance, OCCRP and its whether their report and media reports should be taken as credible evidence. The Supreme Court has made it very clear today. This will probably serve as precedent for future cases of this.
Has this ever happened? And I think that for all our viewers who will be watching this broadcast on the processor and on our digital social media platforms, I think it's important to highlight that what the Supreme Court has basically done is that, contrary to what we used to see from 2004 to 2014, when a range of top corporates of India all came under the scanner, largely due to press reportage, the Supreme Court today has said that just because an article has appeared, just because someone has said something in an international publication, does not give you the right to indulge in what would be described as a corporate hit and run job?
Absolutely. I mean, we can interpret it that way, but what the Supreme Court has clearly said is that and anything appearing in media is clearly not the final word on...
Well, it was never meant to be the final word, but it's certainly between 2004 and 2014 on multiple occasions, we saw how media reports led to RTI activism, led to judicial activism. So not that anymore.
Difference between then and now, and difference particularly between 2009 and 13 and now, is that during those days between 2009 and 13, when the series of so-called scams broke out, including the 2G telecom scam and the coal scam, and there were very large names of large corporations involved, and these were mostly triggered not by media reports but by CAG reports. In this case, it was triggered by a media report and also by a report by a research agency which operated outside of the shores of this.
So what does it do to the very credibility, let's say, of bodies like Hindenburg? When the Supreme Court says that, look, we don't buy this question of conflict of interest, and also the Supreme Court said that we'd like an investigation to be done into who are those who have benefited from short selling post the Hindenburg expose.
Absolutely, and that needle of suspicion is always on short sellers because they are trying to make a quick buck here. Probably they have made. I'll give you an example on how the affected party, the Adani Group, when they announced the price band for the follow-on public offer, it was between 3,100 and 3,200 or 3,300. Today, when the Adani Group's total market cap has again crossed 15 lakh crore, Adani Enterprises' market price, share price has closed just above 3,000, still not reached the lower band of the FPO. At that point in time, the Adani Enterprises' stock prices were above 4,000 rupees. So it's 1 year hence, it's still not recovered fully. So that loss is their loss. That is something that we don't hold any brief for anyone here. But what I'm trying to the point I'm trying to make here is that it went through the entire process of investigation, scrutiny and examination, both by regulators and also by a Supreme Court appointed panel. Now, either we can say that because we can go with a confirmation bias and say that this is all humbug, we don't accept this, or we accept this and say yes, this is something that we need to take note of. I think that is going to be the precedent here, because politically it also had found its reverberations in Parliament, and we have seen how it found its way through in Parliament, how it became a rallying point for the opposition. For the opposition, now the question to ask themselves is that whether this is a point that they can actually rally it.
It should be a point of inflection, to be honest, because if you look at what's happening on a day like today, when the Supreme Court of India effectively says that there is no need for any SIT, no need for any further probe, there is no question of any irregularity. Yes, the Supreme Court has also said that please wind up your investigations into 2 of the remaining cases out of the 24 cases which are still under investigations. Supreme Court meanwhile has also not listened. It has not given any relief to Mahua Moitra, who was hoping, the Trinamool Congress MP, who was hoping that she will be able to consistently question the Adani Group, ended up finding her own membership to be suspended. She went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has posted that matter till the month of March. By then, you're already in election cycle, so no relief for Mahua Moitra there as well. What does it do, to the likes of a Mahua Moitra or Rahul Gandhi, when on a day like this, Jairam Ramesh, the senior Congress functionary, puts out a 2-page press release, basically still leveling allegations against the Adani enterprise, but Jairam Ramesh's own party chief minister, the newly formed government in Telangana, Mr. Revanth Reddy, is exploring cooperation with the same Adani Group. Does it not further expose the Congress party today?
Yeah, well, more than exposure, it also actually, they need to probably, not just the Congress, but all political parties need to take a long, hard look at how they're going to deal with industrialists here, because you can't start from the premise that every industrial house is involved in some kind of acts of omission and commission.
Sab udyogpati chor nahi hai.
So that you have to start from the premise that capitalists or industrialists by nature is going to spin jobs and create employment and income opportunities in the places that they invest. So that is the premise. Now, if you whether it is in the interest of any political party to attack one of India's largest industrial houses and then still say that we are going to attract investment. It's not just about an industrial house, which is the Adani Group in this case. It is about all industrial houses. Today it is the Adani Group, tomorrow it could be someone else. So what it does is it actually makes any industrial house or any potential investor a little wary about going to a state where they probably could be facing unnecessary attention for things that they may not have probably done, or maybe they would not like to open themselves up for examination and scrutiny for things that they would rather avoid.
Last question then, Gaurav. In our country, we've seen many legacy-oriented business houses finding themselves in the IFS storm and honestly not managing to create the businesses that the Adani enterprise may have managed to create. Yeah. Where do you think today's judgment, Gautam Adani's own tweet, where do you think it leaves the credibility of brand Adani, of the Adani enterprise?
So clearly it's got a big thumbs up so far as their own brand credibility is concerned, because they stand vindicated for what they have been saying over the last 1 year. But leave that aside for the moment. What I'm trying to tell you here is that the crux of the investigation, or the crux of the allegation rather, was that the Adani Group has risen, the meteoric, the stratospheric rise of Adani Group over the last 10 years is probably attributable because it took place during the Modi government, and there is some kind of a quid pro quo that needs to be investigated. That is a very difficult and probably a complicated path to tread for any political establishment. Can you establish a quid pro quo because you, at this point in time, you were on the other side of the aisle so far as the political configuration is concerned? If you were in power, the same allegations could come back to bite you. So my point is, you cannot start from a premise that every industrial house is involved in some kind of acts of omission and commission. That is a wrong premise to start your governance in any state.
I think at the beginning of 2024, as I thank Gaurav for joining us in our studios tonight, I think it's ample clear. The Supreme Court has laid down the ground rules. This whole business of just throwing an allegation and running away with it has to stop. And the Chief Justice-led bench has done exactly that. For all other details related to this story, you can track all our affiliated group platforms. Many more details on the processor. You can find out more from my own Twitter handle. We will be reporting aggressively, not just on the Adani story, but all stories related to the dirty underbelly of corporate India.